In closing, I'd like to invite Rosemary, another daughter, to share the eulogy.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of my family, my siblings, Josie, Lydia, Sid, and Emily, and the grandchildren that are here in Canada, I'd like to just say thank you very much for joining us. Although this is a very sorrowful occasion for us, I'd like to say that it is a happy time as well. Tata is resting now and is with our mother. I'm Rosemarie, and I'm the 11th of the 12. And our tatay, as we call him, Lolo, grandfather. Some people call him Isidoro, which is uncle. And also Apoy, great granddad, is now in heaven with Nanay and is probably dancing. He loved to dance. He used to dance anywhere and everywhere in our little town. He would go out at night, even to the remote of areas, to just go dancing for fiestas. Tata lived a life with a strong faith in God, and he instilled that in all of us. Through life's adversities and difficulties, his faith never wavered. He survived World War II with 4 children, and they would be evacuating every now and then. And at the time, he was working at Isidoro Mission Hospital, which is an American missionary hospital. That's where he knew and accepted Christ as his personal Lord and Savior. But in that course of time, he managed to make a friend with a Japanese person, not knowing that this Japanese guy was a senior officer in the military and was working at the hospital at the same time, and yet he was a spy, and Tata didn't know that. But they were the best of friends. He gave Tata a picture of him, and anywhere and everywhere Tata went, he had this picture. Every time there was a checkpoint where the Japanese would question you, your papers and what have you, where you're going, Tata would just dig in his pocket, show this picture to the checkpoint guards, and they will let him go. And he wondered about that for the longest time. At the end of the war, he found out that the guy was like high up in the military. He was a high-ranking officer, but was a spy. Needless to say, I guess that's how he saved his family, his 4 children at the time, with this picture of, he called him Watanabe, I think. And in the process, he learned a few Japanese words, mind you. All it was give me some water or something. But anyways, that's how he was. He was friendly. He made friends with everybody. As mentioned, he never had any enemies. Tata was very resourceful and a very good provider. He started working as a janitor at age 17 at this American missionary hospital. He managed to work himself up to becoming a bill collector for the hospital, and eventually retired as an assistant cashier in the business office after 42 years of service. As a young man, he, some of you will know, he was a tubero. He collected coconut wine. He would climb several coconuts and collect coconut wine to sell, and that was his way of living to support his family. And he was quite proud of that achievement, because even at age 50, he could still outclimb any young man of how many coconuts. And if you were to marry one of his children, one of the tests was you have to climb a coconut. Good thing there's no coconut here in Canada. Or these 3 Caucasian men will fail. He sold, even though he didn't finish any high educational attainment, Tatay was very resourceful. I don't know how he managed it, but he managed to get a license as an insurance agent for the Philippine American assurance company, and that was to meet his very little income from the hospital. And he knew a lot of people. And surprisingly, his English was very good. It was because he dealt with a lot of Americans at the time. And as my brother said, he always said to us, he doesn't have any wealth to leave us, so that all he can do is send us to school, and your education is your wealth, because nobody can take that away from you. He came to Canada in 1978 with my mom and Emily, our youngest. While here, he tried his hands on many things to occupy his time. He's not one of those that would sit idly by and, watch people go by or think about how hard life is. He would always do something with his hands. He did some gardening for a few people, and certainly he had a green thumb. Anything he touched really grew. And but then he did some gardening for my brother-in-law Barry, and he saw all these shrubs, and he asked, "Does this bear fruit? Can you eat it?" And Bear would say no. Well, chop it went. Yeah, so if you can't make use of it, then there's no point in keeping it. But I'll tell you a very funny story about Tatay, how resourceful he is. We lived in Caledonia then, and we had a huge backyard. He had a huge garden, and he managed to have small flock of chicken. He had like 24 chickens, and we would get our eggs from that, and somehow he still managed to sell some. But he grew some green onions, and our neighbor was this Chinese lady, and she also had green onions. For some reason, I don't know how they understood each other, but because she didn't speak a word of English, she was really old. And every day in the summer, she would harvest her green onions, and then she would put it in a bucket. And someone Tatay noticed that, and then she would leave in the morning, like she just walked to Chinatown. And then for some reason or another, they got into an agreement, just by sign language, I guess, that she was pointing at Tatay's green onions. And somehow he understood that he would pull that out, he bunched it, and gave it to this lady in the morning. And by lunchtime, the lady would come back and give him some money. So I guess that was for the green onions. She would sell to Chinatown. And then at the end of the day, they kind of just exchanged smiles, bowed at each other, and that was their agreement. And every day that happened in the summer. So Tatay had this little income from his green onions. So I tell you, he was very, very resourceful. So Tatay was never one to worry when times were tough. I remember Nanay would always worry about where our next meal would come from, especially that she had to feed like 6 or 8 of us at a time. And sometimes 3 or 4 of us are in college. And in the Philippines, as some of you know, you can't take the exam of the semester at the end of the semester if you don't pay your tuition fees. So, and we never had any money for tuition fees. So Tatay would just go to the treasurer of the university and would say, "Oh, I have 3 kids taking exams this week. Do you think you can give me their permits to take the exam?" And that's what we had. Tatay would just write a promissory note, and we get our permits to take the exam. So we just, like, he didn't care, he just goes straight to the treasurer and just say, my kids need to take exams, so. But then he would pay that bit by bit, but that's how he knew a lot of people. And he would always say to Nanay, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will have its own worries. And that God will always provide. So Tatay based his life on the quotes in the Bible, and he would always quote that to us, and that stuck in our mind. And we try, not perfect, but we try to live those values that he had instilled in us. Tatay has touched many lives along the way. His life was one of trust and obedience to the Lord. He was at peace with almost everyone, with himself, and his mortality. He was never scared to die, because I asked him one day, and I said, are you scared to die, Tatay? He said, no, we are just passers-by on this earth, he would say to me. Our real home, our true home is in heaven. And indeed, that's where he is now. I always thought that Tatay would live forever. I never expected him to die. He was always there. And 95 is a long time. As upset as I was when he died, I said to Sid, he can't die. He told me he doesn't want to die here in Canada. So he can't die. Why didn't he wait? He was supposed to go back to the Philippines last Wednesday. But I guess it's the Lord's, I know it's the Lord's will. He has a lot of friends here. He's made a lot of connection here. So I guess it's just fitting. But we will take him home. As he had said to me before we came back, he doesn't want to be buried here in Canada. He wants to be buried where he was born. And he wants Nanay to be with him, to be buried together. And that's what we're going to do. So I appreciate it all very much, that you all have come, and in one way or another, you have touched Tatay's lives as well, and ours. So thank you, and may God be praised.
Thank you, Rosemary. And all of you shared. We have a special number 5 of